The Marvel Universe is filled with secrets, but some truths are so deeply buried that they could change everything we think we know. What if Doctor Doom never truly stole the Beyonder's power in Secret Wars, but instead, the Beyonder let him win, testing what a mortal would do with omnipotence? What if the Ultimate Universe never actually died, but was transformed into the Negative Zone, a twisted prison of forgotten realities, waiting to break free? And what if the X-Men's miraculous ability to defy death wasn't just evolution, but a hidden gift from Doom himself, an unintended consequence of him reshaping the multiverse? These aren't just wild theories. They could be the key to unraveling the deepest mysteries of Marvel's most powerful stories. Let's dive in. Doctor Doom never truly stole the Beyonder's power. The Beyonder let him win. When the omnipotent Beyonder gathered Earth's mightiest heroes and villains onto a distant, patchwork world of his own creation, it was under the guise of a simple game. Slay your enemies, and I shall grant you your deepest desire. But beneath this seemingly straightforward conflict lay something deeper. A test, an experiment, and perhaps even a deception. At the heart of it stood Victor Von Doom, a man whose hunger for power was rivaled only by his relentless belief that he alone was worthy of ruling all creation. Doom, ever the opportunist, quickly recognized that the true power of this battle did not lie in the warring factions of heroes and villains, but in the one who orchestrated it all, the Beyonder himself. The being was beyond comprehension, an entity of pure energy who existed outside space and time, wielding absolute power without limits. Doom knew that if he was to seize victory, it would not be through brute strength but through sheer audacity. He waited, biding his time, and when the moment was right, after the Beyonder had been weakened in a clash with Galactus, he struck. Through a combination of cunning and technological genius, Doom infiltrated the Beyonder's sanctum, constructing a device that siphoned his godlike energy directly into himself. For the first time in his life, Doom was not merely a monarch, not merely a sorcerer, not merely a man. He had become a god. He remade himself in the image of divinity, molding reality at will, healing his scarred face, shaping existence as easily as one breathes. He had won, or at least that is what he believed. But there was something strange in Doom's ascension. Unlike others who had previously grasped at omnipotence, unlike Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet or the countless cosmic beings who struggled for supremacy, Doom did not have to fight for control. The Beyonder's power did not resist him. It did not burn him away, did not seek to reclaim itself, simply yielded, as though it had allowed itself to be taken. And therein lies the question: did Doom ever truly steal the Beyonder's power, or was it given to him? The Beyonder was not merely an all-powerful being. He was a thinker, a being of infinite knowledge and curiosity, one who had no true concept of mortality or struggle. He had created Battleworld to observe the nature of good and evil, to see how heroes and villains waged war, to study the very fabric of desire and conflict. Doom was unlike the others. He did not fight for survival, nor did he fight for glory. He fought because he believed himself destined to rule. What better subject for the Beyonder's experiment than a man who saw godhood as his birthright? Doom's rule was not peaceful. Even with absolute power, he remained haunted by doubt. He created a paradise in his image, yet paranoia gripped him. He feared betrayal. He feared losing what he had gained. He feared himself. This was the fatal flaw the Beyonder had likely foreseen. Doom's ultimate weakness was not that he lacked power, but that he lacked the ability to trust even his own victory. What is a god who doubts himself? In the end, it was not heroism or strength that undid Doom, but his own subconscious insecurity. A sliver of the Beyonder, a fragment of his awareness, still lingered within him, and with that final whisper of self-doubt, the power slipped away. The Beyonder reclaimed his dominion, not through force, but through the simple inevitability that Doom was never meant to keep it. If Doom had truly stolen the Beyonder's power, then why did the Beyonder allow him to? Why was Doom's rule so fleeting, his godhood so fragile? The answer is simple. Doom never won. The Beyonder let him play God, let him taste the divinity he so desperately craved, only to watch as he unraveled under the weight of it. Perhaps it was a lesson, perhaps it was amusement, or perhaps it was something even greater, a demonstration that power, no matter how infinite, means nothing if one cannot overcome the demons within. Battleworld wasn't created, it was remembered. When the multiverse collapsed and reality crumbled into nothingness, only one world remained, Battleworld, a grotesque mosaic of fractured realities, stitched together under the iron rule of its god and creator, Dr. Doom. To the survivors who found themselves trapped within its impossible borders, this world was a fabrication, a desperate construct of stolen lands and rewritten histories. But what if Battleworld wasn't made from the shattered pieces of dying universes? What if it had always existed long before the collapse, long before Doom's so-called ascension, and Doom had merely pulled it from the depths of memory itself? When Doom seized the power of the Beyonders, he did not wield it as one would a weapon. He wielded it as a sculptor wields a chisel, shaping the remains of existence into something that could be controlled, something that could survive. He crafted a world where kingdoms of alternate realities coexisted, where places that had never belonged together suddenly did. Old Man Logan's wasteland, the monstrous domain of Limbo, the medieval realms of House of M, and the endless nightmares of the Deadlands. Doom's will dictated every facet of Battleworld, from its tyrannical Thor core to the silent walls that separated its zones, ensuring that nothing, no one, could challenge his dominion. But there was something unsettling about Battleworld, something wrong. Even in its shattered form, the world felt too natural, as if it had always existed in some forgotten past. The rulers of each domain carried memories that did not belong to them, as though they had lived in these lands far longer than the end of the multiverse should have allowed. There was no sense of newness, no struggle of adaptation, only the quiet, lingering acceptance of a world that had always been, even when it should not have been possible. And perhaps the most damning evidence of all lay in Doom himself. Doom was a god, yes, but he did not behave like one. He did not act as though he had created something new. He acted as though he had restored something lost. When he walked the sacred halls of Castle Doom, he carried himself not as a creator admiring his work, but as a guardian of something ancient, something fragile. Even his own self-proclaimed divinity was uncertain. He wore the mask of a god, but deep down he knew the truth. A true god does not fear the collapse of their world, and Doom feared Battleworld. If Battleworld had merely been his own invention, he could have shaped it in any way he pleased. Yet the structure of the world, the rigid division of its domains, the subtle but undeniable order, suggested something else. It was not the careless creation of a god intoxicated by limitless power, but the precise reconstruction of something that had existed long before, something Doom had found within the power of the Beyonders, buried deep within the very essence of reality. What if Battleworld was never created at all? What if Doom did not invent it, but simply remembered it? A forgotten world, hidden between the layers of time, erased by something even greater than the Beyonders. A world that had once been real, only to be wiped from history itself. A world that should have never been recovered. But Doom did recover it. Perhaps that was the reason he fought so desperately to maintain control, why he enforced order with such ferocity. If Battleworld had been merely a construct of his own making, there would be no reason to fear its fall. He could simply create another. But if Battleworld was something ancient, something whose existence defied the very nature of the universe, then its destruction would mean far more than the loss of a fleeting experiment. It would mean the loss of something Doom himself did not fully understand, something that had only barely survived the last time it had existed. And Doom, for all his power, was still mortal enough to fear what he did not understand. Perhaps Battleworld was never truly a world at all, but a scar, a wound left behind by something far older than the multiverse itself, something that should have remained buried in the void, something Doom, in his arrogance, had dragged back into existence. And if that is true, then the fall of Battleworld was not just the end of Doom's rule. It was the second time this world had been erased. The true identity of the Molecule Man, a living reset button. Owen Reese was never meant to be a man. From the moment he gained his powers, from the instant that fateful accident bathed him in an explosion of cosmic radiation, his existence was no longer his own. He was something else, something designed. The world saw him as a troubled, unstable being, one of limitless potential but seemingly cursed with an unbalanced mind. But beneath his nervous stammering, beneath his fractured psyche, lay a truth so vast and so terrifying that even the greatest minds in existence failed to see it. Owen Reese was never just a man who gained power. He was power itself incarnate, a construct, a failsafe woven into the very fabric of the multiverse, a living reset button. The first clue to Owen's true nature was his power. Unlike mutants, cosmic beings, or sorcerers who bent the rules of reality, Owen did not break the laws of physics. He was the laws of physics, the very foundation of reality bent to his will. Every molecule, every atom, every quantum particle in existence was nothing more than an extension of himself, awaiting his command. He could unmake the unbreakable, rewrite the immutable, defy existence itself with a mere thought. And yet, despite wielding what should have been a power greater than any cosmic force, he was weak, hesitant, vulnerable. That was by design. Owen Reese was not an accident. He was never just a man who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was placed there. He was created there. And those who shaped him did so with a single purpose in mind. Long before Owen Reese took his first breath, before the known universe was even a concept, there existed the Beyonders, beings of unfathomable power, existing outside of space, outside of time. To them, the multiverse was nothing more than an elaborate construct, something that could be studied, manipulated, and ultimately discarded when its usefulness ran out. They did not see the multiverse as a living, breathing expanse of endless possibility. They saw it as an experiment, and like all experiments, it needed a controlled destruction, a way to erase everything and begin anew. Owen Reese was that destruction. Unbeknownst to the minds of Earth, to the cosmic forces that ruled existence, the Beyonders had seeded countless realities with a singular anomaly, the Molecule Man. Across every universe, across every timeline, there was always an Owen Reese. Always the same origin, the same accident, the same impossible power. But he was never truly a man. He was a construct, a constant. Every Molecule Man in every reality was identical because they were meant to be. He was the Beyonders' failsafe, a bomb hidden in the heart of every universe, waiting for the moment when his true purpose would be realized. And then it was when the Beyonders finally decided that the multiverse had run its course. They did not send an army. They did not unleash a grand cosmic force. They did not need to. All they had to do was activate what they had placed in every universe from the beginning. The Molecule Men, across every plane of reality, they all collapsed in unison, their power ripping apart the very structure of existence, erasing the infinite complexity of the multiverse as effortlessly as one might wipe a slate clean. Entire realities folded into oblivion, not with a scream, but with a whisper. But something went wrong. One Molecule Man survived. One Owen Reese did not die when he was meant to. He was saved, plucked from the collapsing web of reality by a man who saw the truth, Dr. Doom. Doom, through sheer force of will, through intelligence that even the Beyonders had underestimated, saw what others could not. He saw that the Molecule Man was not merely a man with power, but the source of power itself. He understood that if he could control the last surviving Molecule Man, he could rebuild what had been lost. Doom took the fragmented pieces of existence, the scraps of universes that still clung to survival, and forged them into something new, Battleworld. But he did not do it alone. He could not. It was the Molecule Man, the last remnant of a reality that should have been erased, who provided the means to shape this impossible world. Doom wielded the power, but Owen was the power. And that was the great irony. For all his perceived weakness, for all his nervous energy and self-doubt, Owen Reese had been the most important being in existence from the very beginning. He was not merely a man touched by power, he was the power, the key to existence itself. And when Doom ultimately fell, when the last remnants of Battleworld collapsed and the multiverse was reborn, it was not through some cosmic force or divine will. It was Owen, the final Molecule Man, the last of his kind. He had been made to erase existence, but in the end, he restored it. God Emperor Doom didn't kill the real Reed Richards, he became him. When Doom remade reality, when he took the broken fragments of countless destroyed universes and reshaped them into his own twisted kingdom, he did so not as a conqueror, but as a god. And yet, despite his divinity, despite his absolute power, there was one truth that haunted him, one weakness that gnawed at the edges of his rule like a crack in a perfect mirror. Reed Richards. Even in a world where Doom had claimed everything, where he had forged an empire from oblivion, he could not escape the shadow of his greatest rival. And so he did what only a god could do. He erased Reed Richards from existence. Or at least that was what everyone believed. Doom had always envied Richards. Not his power, not his victories, but his mind. The way he saw the universe, the way he understood it in ways Doom never could. It was a bitter irony that, for all of Doom's brilliance, for all of his vast intellect, he was never Reed Richards. He was something else, something lesser. But now, with the power of the Beyonders coursing through him, Doom no longer needed to settle for being Victor Von Doom. He could be better. He could be Reed. The world of Battleworld was Doom's masterpiece, a world where he had rewritten history to place himself as the supreme ruler, the savior of existence. But he did more than sculpt landscapes and command legions of Thors. He rewrote the very identities of those who might stand in his way. Those who had once been his greatest enemies now served as his loyal subjects, their minds reshaped, their histories rewritten. Stephen Strange, the man who had once been his greatest critic, had become his most trusted ally. Susan Storm, the woman who had never been his, now called him her husband. And Franklin and Valeria, the children of Reed Richards, now called him their father. But Doom did not merely take Reed's family. He took something far greater. He took his mind. To erase Reed Richards was not enough. Doom had done that before, had killed him, had destroyed his inventions, had humiliated him in every way imaginable. And yet, Reed always returned. His ideas always endured. Doom had realized that as long as Reed existed, even in memory, he would never be free of him. So he went further than he ever had before. He did not simply eliminate Reed Richards. He became him. The power of the Beyonders allowed Doom to shape reality itself, not just externally, but internally. He could alter the fabric of existence, and that included his own. Slowly, subtly, Doom began to think as Reed did. He saw the world not with the arrogance of a conqueror, but with the clarity of a scientist. The doubts that had once plagued him, the insecurities that had driven him to wage war on the world, began to fade. He no longer envied Reed's mind, he possessed it. He no longer feared Reed's presence, because in his mind he was Reed Richards. But something was wrong. For all his power, For all his control, Doom still felt uneasy. There was something in him that resisted, something deep within his soul that rejected the idea that he could ever be better than Reed. The flaw was not in his power, nor in his intellect, it was in his nature. Doom had tried to shape himself into the man he had spent his life resenting, but he had failed to realize one simple truth. Reed Richards had never wanted to rule. That was the difference. That was the crack in Doom's perfect reality. He had taken Reed's life, his family, his very essence. But in doing so, he had revealed the one thing he had never truly understood: why Reed Richards was who he was. Doom had spent his entire life seeking power, believing that it was the ultimate measure of greatness. But Reed had never been driven by the need to rule, to dominate, to control. He had been driven by something far greater: curiosity. That was why Reed had always beaten him. That was why, no matter how many times Doom had declared victory, it had always felt hollow. It was never about who was smarter, who was stronger, who could wield the greatest power. It was about who understood the universe. And no matter how much Doom tried to shape himself into Reed's image, he could never truly understand the world the way Reed did. Because Doom did not wonder. He only conquered. And that was why, in the end, Reed Richards was still alive. Not as a man, not in body, but in mind. In the pieces of himself that still lived inside Doom, in the slivers of thought, the echoes of ideas that had begun to shape Doom's actions without him even realizing it. And when the true Reed Richards, the one Doom had tried to erase, finally returned, when he stood before Doom in the heart of Battleworld and challenged him, Doom did not face him as an enemy. He faced him as an equal, because for the first time in his life, Doom had finally seen the universe the way Reed had. He had finally understood what it meant to create, not out of a desire to rule, but out of a desire to learn. And in that moment, Doom did something he had never done before. He let go, because deep down he knew the truth. He had spent his entire life trying to prove that he was better than Reed Richards. But the moment he truly became him, he realized that he had already lost. Miles Morales' survival in Secret Wars wasn't an accident. It was a gift from the one above all. When the multiverse died, so did everyone in it. Every universe, every timeline, every possibility was erased in an instant, collapsing into the great nothingness left in the wake of the Beyonders' grand experiment. Heroes and villains alike fought to their last breath, but none could escape the inevitable. Worlds shattered, existence crumbled, and all that remained was Doom. Doom, who had stolen the power of the Beyonders, who had taken what little remained of reality and reshaped it into his own image. Battleworld, a patchwork of broken timelines and lost realms, was all that was left of creation. Those who lived there had no memory of the universes they had lost. They only knew the world as it had been made by Doom, their god and ruler. But somehow, impossibly, Miles Morales remembered. He should not have survived. The world he knew, the ultimate universe, was gone. All that remained of it was the piece that Doom had allowed to exist, a twisted reflection of what once was. And yet, there he stood, unchanged, unbroken, still himself when so many others had been rewritten. This was no accident. It was no simple twist of fate. It was a gift. In the grand scale of cosmic forces, where gods and titans played with reality as if it were a game, Miles Morales was nothing. He was not a king, not a god, not a being of infinite power. He was just a boy, a kid from Brooklyn with a good heart and a strong will. But there was something about him, something even greater than power, something that even Doom, in all his arrogance, could not erase. Hope. In the darkest moments, when everything had fallen, Miles Morales should have been lost. He should have perished alongside his world, just another forgotten soul in the endless void. But there was something watching over him, something that saw past the destruction, past the collapse of all things, and reached into the abyss to pull him free. The one above all, the true God of the Marvel multiverse. Not a being of control like the Beyonders, not a tyrant like Doom. The one above all was creation itself, the force beyond forces, the hand that shaped existence without ever needing to rule over it. It had never interfered in the wars of men or the struggles of gods. It had never chosen sides. Until now, Miles Morales was spared, not by accident, not by the whims of Doom's imperfect omnipotence, but by something greater. When Doom remade reality, when he sculpted Battleworld in his own image, he did not, could not, erase Miles Morales from existence. The boy's presence defied the logic of Doom's perfect world. There was no reason for him to be there, but he was, because he had been chosen. The one above all does not act without reason. It does not play favorites, does not interfere in the endless conflicts of the universe. But when the multiverse died, when all that remained was a single broken world ruled by a false god, it reached into the nothingness and saved Miles. Not because he was the strongest, not because he was the smartest, but because he was pure, a soul untouched by the corruption of power, a heart untainted by greed or ambition. And so, even in the impossible nightmare of Battleworld, Miles Morales stood unchanged. He was the last whisper of a world that should have been forgotten, the last ember of something real in a world of Doom's illusions. And when the final battle came, when the truth of Battleworld unraveled and Doom's grip on reality began to slip, it was Miles who held on to something that even Doom had overlooked. A simple hamburger. It was ridiculous, absurd, that in a world of gods and monsters, a world forged from the ashes of countless realities, something as mundane as a burger could survive. And yet it had, because when the multiverse was restored, when Reed Richards took the power Doom had stolen and remade existence as it was meant to be, Miles Morales was still there. The world had been rewritten, history restored, universes reborn, but Miles had not been erased. He had not been returned to the void. He had been given a home. The Marvel Universe, the true reality, should never have had a place for him. He had come from something different, something separate, something that no longer existed. And yet he lived, not as an outsider, not as a relic of a lost timeline, but as a part of this new world. Because the one above all had willed it. Miles Morales had been saved for a reason, plucked from destruction and placed into the heart of a new reality. He was more than just a survivor. He was a symbol, proof that even when the universe itself collapses, even when everything is lost, there is something greater than power. Hope endures. Black Panther's Infinity Gauntlet wasn't just powerful. It was preordained. In the vast tapestry of the Marvel Universe, few figures are as pivotal, as fated as T'Challa the Black Panther. His rise to power, his inheritance of the mantle of the Black Panther, was not by chance. It was the culmination of centuries of tradition, of ritual, of bloodlines intertwined with the very essence of Wakanda. Every moment in his life, from the day of his birth to the loss of his father, was always meant to lead to something greater. But the truth of what that something was would not become clear until much later, when the fabric of existence itself hung in the balance. The Infinity Gauntlet, an object of unparalleled power, was not simply an artifact of the cosmos. It was a weapon of destiny. Crafted by the mad titan Thanos, the gauntlet was meant to hold the 6 Infinity Stones, each representing a fundamental force of existence. Time, space, reality, power, soul, and mind. When Thanos wielded the gauntlet, he could bend reality to his will, altering the very fabric of the universe itself, and ultimately reshaping existence on his whim. But the gauntlet was never meant to be Thanos's forever. It had always been intended for someone else, someone worthy, someone who could control its power without being consumed by it. That someone was always meant to be Chala. For years, the Black Panther had been entrenched in the struggle of his people, balancing his duties as a king, a protector, and a leader. But what few understood was that he was also a man connected to a cosmic thread, a line of destiny that ran through his blood, through the heart of Wakanda itself. His ancestors, those who had ruled before him, were more than just kings. They were the guardians of a power, of a legacy far older than Wakanda, older even than the first appearance of the Infinity Stones themselves. It was not merely a coincidence that the Black Panther's spirit was tied to the heart-shaped herb, a sacred plant that connected its user to the panther god Bast. Through this connection, Chala could communicate with the spirits of his ancestors, each one offering their wisdom, their strength, and their guidance. But in truth, this power was a mere reflection of something much greater, something cosmic. The heart-shaped herb was an extension of the same energies that created the Infinity Stones, a link between the mortal realm and the very fabric of the universe. And it was through this connection that Chalia's future was sealed long before he even understood it. When the Avengers confronted Thanos in the battle for the Infinity Stones, when the Mad Titan sought to erase half of all life in the universe, it was clear that the Infinity Gauntlet was more than just a weapon. It was a force of creation and destruction on an unimaginable scale, an instrument of cosmic balance, forged to determine the fate of entire realities. But it was also a mirror, one that reflected the true worth of its wielder. Thanos was not the first to seek its power, nor would he be the last. Countless beings throughout the multiverse had tried to wield the gauntlet, only to be consumed by its infinite power. Those who were not worthy had been destroyed, their ambitions shattered. But Thanos, driven by his obsession, was able to channel the gauntlet's immense power, and for a time, it seemed that no one could stop him. However, the power of the gauntlet was always meant to be controlled by someone who understood balance. Someone who was not driven by ego or thirst for dominance, but by the wisdom of ages, the understanding of what it meant to rule and protect. In short, someone who could bear the weight of the entire universe and still preserve its integrity. Someone like Chala. In the final moments, as the Avengers scrambled to stop Thanos, Chalia's role became undeniable. He was not a passive participant in the story. His involvement was not random, nor was it a simple stroke of fate. It was predestined. The Black Panther, with all his strength, intellect, and honor, was the one who was chosen to wield the power of the Infinity Gauntlet, not to dominate the universe, but to restore it, to set things right. The gauntlet, as powerful as it was, needed a hand that would not be blinded by vengeance or greed. It needed the hand of a king, someone who was trained to sacrifice for the greater good, someone who had seen both the light and the darkness and understood their place in the grand design. When Chala was chosen to wield the gauntlet, it was not by accident. The powers that be, whether the celestial forces of the universe or the very will of fate itself, had long ago determined that he was the only one worthy. The Black Panther had walked a path of trials, of struggles, of personal loss, all of which had forged him into the leader that he was meant to become. But the final test, the ultimate challenge, was not one of strength or intellect. It was the ability to withstand the temptation of ultimate power. And Chala proved that he was capable of doing just that. With the gauntlet in hand, he did not seek to dominate or rule the cosmos. Instead, he understood its true purpose, to restore what was lost, to bring balance to a universe on the brink of destruction. He wielded the gauntlet with the wisdom of his ancestors, guided by the knowledge of what it meant to protect his people, to protect life itself. The Black Panther's moment with the gauntlet was not a random twist of fate. It was the fulfillment of a cosmic prophecy, one written in the very stars and echoed in the ancient rituals of his people. He was not just a man who happened to have the right tools at the right time. He was always meant to wield the power of the Infinity Gauntlet, not to reshape the universe, but to restore it, to keep it in harmony with the greater order of existence. And when the universe was saved, when Thanos was defeated, the Black Panther did not bask in the glory of his victory. He returned to his people, to his kingdom, humbled and resolute. The gauntlet had never been his to keep. It had only been his to wield for a time, to fulfill his destiny. And when his task was done, he placed it back into the hands of fate, knowing that it would never again be wielded by one who was not worthy. Because the true power of the gauntlet was not in its ability to destroy, it was in its ability to be wielded by the right person at the right time. And in that moment, T'Challa had been that person. The Beyonders are the ultimate failed experiment of the Celestials. In the farthest reaches of the universe, where time and space lose all meaning, the Beyonders exist as incomprehensible beings of unfathomable power. They are cosmic entities of pure energy and thought, their very presence bending the laws of reality. To most, they seem like gods, entities beyond even the reach of the Celestials themselves. Their power is so vast that even the most experienced and powerful beings in the Marvel Universe tremble at the thought of them. But what if the truth behind the Beyonders' existence was far more complicated and tragic than anyone could imagine? What if these beings, who are often seen as the ultimate cosmic threat, were not born from some random burst of energy or evolved from the primordial forces of the universe? What if they were not gods at all, but the Celestials' greatest failure? The Celestials, those ancient and cosmic beings who molded the universe as we know it, have long played a role in shaping existence. They are the architects, the creators of countless worlds, and the overseers of life itself. Their power is unrivaled, their understanding of creation and destruction beyond the comprehension of mortal minds. But the Celestials, for all their wisdom, are not infallible. They are beings who have experimented with life and power on a scale that few can comprehend. They have created life in various forms, from the Eternals to the Deviants, shaping and sculpting life across the universe. Yet, they have also destroyed worlds, bringing an end to entire civilizations in the name of their grand designs. But in their unyielding search for perfection, they made a mistake, an experiment that would go awry, a cosmic error that would give birth to the Beyonders. The Celestials, in their pursuit of understanding the boundaries of life and creation, sought to craft a new kind of being, one that could transcend even their own vast power. These beings were intended to be an evolution beyond the Eternals, beyond even the Celestials themselves. They were created to be the ultimate expression of cosmic knowledge and energy, beings who could manipulate reality itself, shaping the universe to their will. But what the Celestials didn't anticipate was the overwhelming power they imbued their creations with. The Beyonders were far more than what the Celestials had hoped for. The Beyonders were born from the purest, most concentrated form of cosmic energy. They existed beyond time and space, their consciousness detached from the physical realms they had once sought to manipulate. And yet, in their birth, the Beyonders had become something far more terrifying than any being the Celestials had ever created. They were not only beyond the physical universe, they were beyond the rules that govern the universe itself. They were capable of changing the very nature of reality with a single thought. But in doing so, they also became disconnected from it, unable to understand the delicate balance between creation and destruction. They were too powerful to exist within the very framework the Celestials had set in motion. The Celestials, as creators of the universe, believed that all life had a purpose, a role in the grand design of existence. They believed in a balance, one where creation and destruction were intertwined, and every life form, from the smallest microbe to the most powerful celestial, had a part to play. But the Beyonders, in their limitless power, were beyond balance. They could not be controlled, nor could they understand the necessity of balance in the universe. They existed only to destroy and recreate, shaping and reshaping realities in ways that defied the Celestials' intentions. As the Beyonders continued their experiments, they sought to understand the very fabric of existence. They probed the nature of time and space, looking for ways to unravel the foundations of the universe. But in doing so, they began to unravel the delicate balance that the Celestials had worked so hard to maintain. Entire realities were destroyed in the wake of the Beyonders' tests. Entire universes erased as the Beyonders tried to bend them to their will. The Celestials watched in horror as their creations began to destabilize the multiverse itself. They realized too late that their attempt to create a higher being had backfired. What they had created was an entity that could not exist in their universe, a force so disruptive that it threatened to unravel the very core of existence. And so, the Celestials did what they could. They contained the Beyonders. They built barriers to separate them from the rest of creation, hiding them away in a place where they could do no more damage. But the damage had already been done. The Beyonders had seen the structure of reality, and they had tasted its limits. They had learned how to manipulate the very fabric of existence. And though they were confined, they were not gone. The Celestials' greatest failure, their ultimate creation, was still out there, waiting. The Beyonders' continued existence would have catastrophic consequences for the universe. Over time, they would return, and their influence would begin to seep into the fabric of reality itself. They were the driving force behind some of the most destructive events in the Marvel Universe, such as the Secret Wars saga, where their meddling with time and space led to the destruction of entire worlds. Their thirst for understanding, for control over the cosmos, would lead them to clash with other cosmic powers, including the Celestials themselves, in a final confrontation that would shake the very foundations of the universe. The Beyonders, then, were not born as a natural part of the cosmic order. They were an experiment gone wrong. They were the Celestials' greatest failure, a mistake so catastrophic that it threatened the very fabric of creation itself. In their attempts to create the ultimate being, the Celestials had unwittingly created an entity so powerful and uncontrollable that it could only exist as an anomaly, forever outside the bounds of the universe they had sought to perfect. The Beyonders' existence was a reminder of the dangers of unchecked creation, of the perils of trying to control the forces that govern life itself. They were the Celestials' ultimate failure, and the universe would feel the consequences of their mistake for eons to come. Spider-Man's symbiote suit wasn't a coincidence. It was planted. Peter Parker, the beloved Spider-Man, has long been a symbol of responsibility, of the struggle between power and the consequences that come with it. But there was one event in his life, one chapter in his story, that would shake him to his very core. That chapter was the arrival of the alien symbiote, a black, living suit that bonded with him and brought forth an uncontrollable force of darkness. For years, the tale of how Spider-Man came into possession of the suit was one of chance. A simple accident on a distant alien planet led to the symbiote attaching itself to Peter during the aftermath of the Secret Wars. But what if the truth was far more intricate than that? What if the arrival of the symbiote wasn't a mere coincidence or accident, but a deliberate act, an event set in motion by hidden hands, orchestrated by powers far beyond Spider-Man's comprehension? The symbiote, a parasitic life form, was far more than just a powerful suit of armor. It was a sentient being, an alien organism that sought to bond with a host and merge with them, granting them enhanced strength, agility, and resilience. Initially, the symbiote seemed to be a boon for Spider-Man. His powers were amplified, his enemies were no match for his newfound strength, and his confidence reached new heights. The suit's black exterior, sleek and smooth, stood in stark contrast to the familiar red and blue costume that Spider-Man was known for. But as time wore on, the suit began to reveal its darker nature. Peter became increasingly aggressive, more reckless in his actions, and the lines between his sense of morality and the suit's parasitic desires began to blur. It wasn't long before Peter realized that the suit was not just enhancing his powers. It was feeding off his emotions, amplifying his anger, his need for control, and, most dangerously, his ego. It wasn't long before Peter sought to rid himself of the symbiote, realizing that it was no longer a mere tool, but a threat to his very identity. What Peter didn't know, however, was that the symbiote's arrival was far from an accident. It had been placed in his path, its bond with him orchestrated by an unseen force. The story of how the symbiote first came to Earth begins far earlier than Peter's time, on a distant alien world, the home planet of the symbiotes, a species of life forms that sought to conquer and control. For years, the symbiotes had been traveling through space, searching for hosts to bond with, and in their endless travels, they encountered the Kree, a powerful alien race with a penchant for experimentation. The Kree, always seeking to expand their reach, had long been fascinated by the potential of symbiote bonding. They had seen the symbiote's incredible abilities and understood that, in the right hands, they could be used as weapons. The Kree's interest in the symbiotes was not accidental. They had spent years studying their biology, analyzing their strengths, and considering how best to control them. But they realized that the symbiotes, though powerful, were uncontrollable. At least they were when left to their own devices. The symbiotes were far too volatile, too unpredictable. However, the Kree believed that they could harness the power of the symbiotes through careful manipulation, through a process of carefully selecting the right hosts for them, beings who would be both powerful and vulnerable enough to be manipulated. And so, the Kree made a decision. They would use the symbiotes as part of their ultimate plan, a plan to not only control the symbiotes, but to infiltrate the ranks of the universe's greatest heroes. They would introduce a new player into the equation. Spider-Man Peter Parker, a hero with unmatched potential, was the perfect candidate. The Kree had been monitoring Earth for years, studying its heroes, and they recognized Spider-Man's strength, his determination, and his deep-rooted sense of morality. But they also saw his vulnerabilities, his guilt, his insecurities, and his capacity for self-doubt. They knew that Spider-Man was the perfect host for the symbiote, a hero who would be tested and ultimately manipulated by the dark influence of the creature. The Kree orchestrated the events that led to the symbiote's arrival on Earth, ensuring that it would end up in Spider-Man's hands. They knew that the cosmic event known as the Secret Wars would be the perfect opportunity to make this happen. The Beyonder, in his infinite power, had brought together various heroes and villains from across the multiverse to battle it out on a distant world. As part of this cosmic event, the symbiote, discarded and abandoned by its previous host, was left vulnerable, wandering in the chaos of the war. It was in the aftermath of this event that Spider-Man would unknowingly find the symbiote, bonding with it in a moment of desperation. The Kree's influence was subtle but precise. They ensured that the symbiote would find Peter, that it would bond with him, and that its dark influence would be allowed to take root. At first, the symbiote's presence was subtle. Peter, wearing the black suit, was unaware of the true nature of the alien organism. It wasn't until he began to experience the changes in his personality, the gradual shift toward aggression, and the increasing desire to dominate that he realized something was wrong. The symbiote's influence had taken hold, amplifying his darker impulses and pushing him toward behavior that was uncharacteristic of the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But by the time Peter realized the extent of the symbiote's control, it was too late. The bond had been formed, and he had already become emotionally dependent on the suit's powers. The truth behind the symbiote's arrival, however, goes far beyond mere chance. The Kree had orchestrated everything, from the symbiote's discard by its previous host to its eventual bonding with Peter Parker. They had intended for the symbiote to create a hero who would be torn apart by his own darkness, a hero who would ultimately be a pawn in their larger, more sinister game. But what the Kree hadn't anticipated was the strength of Peter's willpower. Through sheer determination, Peter was able to reject the symbiote, ultimately ridding himself of the dark influence it exerted over him. Despite his rejection of the symbiote, its influence would not fade entirely. It would go on to bond with Eddie Brock, creating the monstrous Venom, a villain who would haunt Spider-Man for years to come. And so, while the symbiote's arrival in Peter Parker's life seemed like an accident, it was, in truth, the culmination of a hidden agenda. An agenda planted by forces beyond Peter's understanding, forces that sought to manipulate him, to use his greatest strength and his greatest weakness against him. Spider-Man's battle with the symbiote was not just a fight against an alien parasite. It was a battle for his very soul, a battle that would ultimately reveal the deep complexities of his own character and of the universe itself. The Ultimate Universe didn't die. It became the new negative zone. The end of the Ultimate Universe, or Earth 1610, was a significant moment in Marvel's multiversal saga, and to many, it appeared as if the universe had simply met its tragic end. But what if the destruction of the Ultimate Universe wasn't a definitive, final conclusion? What if, rather than being destroyed, it was merely transformed into something far more sinister and far-reaching, something that would continue to exist in a new form, hidden and corrupted from within? This theory proposes that the Ultimate Universe didn't perish at the hands of the Marvel Universe during the event known as Secret Wars. It became the new negative zone, a twisted, alternate dimension of unbridled chaos and unimaginable danger. To understand this theory, we must first examine the nature of the Ultimate Universe. This universe was established as a darker, more modern reimagining of classic Marvel heroes, a place where the stories of Spider-Man, the X-Men, the Avengers, and the Fantastic Four were given a more grounded, and at times more tragic, spin. In the Ultimate Universe, Peter Parker's journey was far different from his 616 counterpart. He was a younger, more flawed hero, his battles marked by the violence of his world and the heavier stakes of his life. The same could be said for the other heroes. Nick Fury was a gruff, militarized leader, the X-Men were fractured, and the Avengers were largely untested. The Ultimate Universe offered a new, raw, and often brutal version of the Marvel heroes we knew. However, as often happens in the Marvel Universe, things were never meant to remain stable for long. The Ultimate Universe, despite its initial promise, was always on a collision course with the regular Marvel Universe, its darker and more volatile nature making it incompatible with the status quo. The seeds of this collision were planted as characters like the ultimate versions of the Avengers and the X-Men grew more disconnected from their 616 counterparts. Tensions rose, and soon enough, the two universes would meet in a cataclysmic event. The Incursion. The multiverse, which had always been a series of alternate realities and universes existing alongside one another, began to collapse. Universes collided, and entire worlds were destroyed. The ultimate moment of destruction came with the final incursion between the 616 universe and the Ultimate Universe, where it seemed inevitable that one would fall. The Earth of the Ultimate Universe, with its heroes and history, was obliterated during this cataclysmic event. The final pages of the Ultimate Universe saw its destruction, its heroes wiped from existence in a dramatic and tragic conclusion. Yet this wasn't the end for the Ultimate Universe. Instead, the remnants of its existence, its energy, its people, its essence, were not simply erased from the multiverse. They were transformed. Rather than vanishing into the void, as many assumed, the remnants of Earth 1610 were shifted, relocated into a new, uncharted space in the multiverse. A place where the rules of reality no longer applied, a dimension warped and corrupted by the lingering energies of the Ultimate Universe. This place would come to be known as the New Negative Zone, a parallel dimension once thought of as a barren, hostile landscape filled with dangerous creatures and a twisted, unstable environment. But what if this reality was not just a void? What if the negative zone, as we know it, was merely a prison for the leftover energies of a dead universe? One that had not truly died but instead become something else, something worse. The negative zone, at one point, was considered a dangerous and inhospitable realm. It was a place outside the bounds of conventional space, where bizarre and deadly entities roamed free. But what made it so dangerous was not merely the hostile environment. It was the fact that it was a place where reality itself was malleable, where the laws of time and space were twisted. The negative zone was an area of chaos and instability, a place where those who ventured too far could lose themselves in the folds of the universe. And this new, transformed negative zone, created from the shattered remains of the ultimate universe, would take on an even darker nature. It would be a place where the tortured remnants of the ultimate universe would be trapped in a perpetual state of decay, its citizens and heroes now corrupted by the very chaos that destroyed them. The theory posits that the energies of the ultimate universe, twisted by the incursion, became the core of this new negative zone. The negative zone, once a location of dangerous entities and hostile environments, would now serve as a reflection of everything that went wrong in the ultimate universe. Its heroes, like the ultimate versions of the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man, would find themselves trapped in this new hellish dimension, forever warped by the forces that once defined their world. The ultimate Reed Richards, for example, who was always portrayed as a genius but morally ambiguous character, would find himself a ruler of this new negative zone, corrupted by his own dark desires. The ultimate Spider-Man, whose tragic death marked the end of his universe, would return as a broken, darker version of himself, unable to escape the consequences of his death in this new, twisted space. Over time, the negative zone would evolve, absorbing the characteristics of the fallen universe. It would become a dimension where chaos reigned supreme, and where the rules of the multiverse no longer applied. The ultimate universe's darker themes, the violence and tragedy that defined its heroes, would bleed into the very fabric of this new reality. The negative zone would no longer be just a place of exile. It would be a dimension that reflected the suffering, the pain, and the disillusionment of the ultimate universe's last days. This new negative zone, created from the collapse of the ultimate universe, would become a place of twisted reflection. It would serve as a reminder that the ultimate universe, despite its destruction, had never truly been erased. Its impact on the multiverse would continue to haunt the Marvel Universe, its energies still lingering in the folds of the negative zone. The ultimate universe didn't die. It was transformed into something else, something more dangerous and unstable. Its legacy would live on, not as a world of heroes, but as a dimension of endless conflict, a twisted and broken mirror of everything it once was. And in this new negative zone, the trapped remnants of the ultimate universe would have to confront the consequences of their existence, forever lost in a reality that had been warped and distorted beyond recognition. Thor Core wasn't created to serve Doom. It was created to stop him. When we first encounter the Thor Core in Secret Wars, the image of numerous Thors, each from different realities, serving the godlike ruler known as God Emperor Doom, might seem like a natural one. Doom, having claimed near absolute power over Battleworld, appears to command these mighty beings, each one of them an incarnation of Thor. They are presented as enforcers, as protectors of his rule, each wielding Mjolnir and representing the law of Battleworld with ferocity and unwavering loyalty. But what if this image of blind servitude is nothing but a facade, an illusion created by Doom himself? What if the Thor Core was never meant to serve him, but rather to stop him, to challenge the very power he wielded? This theory proposes that the Thor Core was created not as Doom's loyal army, but as a contingency plan, a necessary defense mechanism against the oppressive rule of God Emperor Doom, who had grown dangerously close to becoming an omnipotent tyrant. The first question to ask here is how Doom ascended to such a position of power, especially in a place like Battleworld, a reality born from the remnants of multiple universes, shaped and governed by the whims of his will. To understand why the Thor Core was formed, we need to first understand the nature of Doom's rule and how far-reaching his influence truly was. Doom, after the events of Secret Wars, managed to reshape the multiverse into his vision of perfection. By wielding the power of the Beyonders, beings of unimaginable power who transcended space and time, Doom remade the shattered pieces of the multiverse into Battleworld, a patchwork of various domains, each one reflecting the remnants of different realities. Under his rule, Doom was not just a god in name. He was a literal deity, holding dominion over all things in his domain, shaping and controlling reality itself with a mere thought. With this power, he created a world where the laws of nature were bent to his will. He was no longer a human being. He was God Emperor Doom, a figure that commanded the respect, fear, and adoration of every soul under his reign. However, this immense power and control came with a profound risk. Doom was no longer simply a ruler. He was the embodiment of absolute power, unchecked and unchallenged. His rule was absolute, but it was not free from the looming threat of rebellion. Even with all of his godlike abilities, there was always the potential for one of his creations, one of his subjects, to grow too powerful or to see through the illusion of his reign. Thus, Doom, ever the strategist, would have had to take precautions. Even in the height of his power, there was no way for him to entirely eliminate the threat of those who might rise up against him. In a multiverse as vast and diverse as Marvel's, there existed multiple versions of Thor, the god of thunder, beings with powers that rivaled Doom's own in many ways. The Thor core, then, would not be a mere tool for Doom's will. It would be an army of contingencies, each Thor an agent in a plan to safeguard against the unforeseen future when Doom's power might falter. What better defense than to create an army of Thors, each one armed with the fabled Mjolnir, the weapon of a god, each one with the power to challenge even the might of Doom himself. The truth of the Thor Core's origin can be traced back to the inherent responsibility and honor of the Thors themselves. While many of them appear loyal to Doom and are seen carrying out his orders with ruthless efficiency, the reality is far more complicated. Doom, aware of his own growing obsession with control, was forced to create these Thors as a reflection of his own fear. He needed a counterbalance, a force that could potentially rise up against him in case his own hubris led to his downfall. These Thors were not simply warriors. They were a safeguard, a means to keep Doom in check. The Thor core, created by Doom, is therefore not simply a group of enforcers or warriors. It is a group of living checks and balances, each Thor representing a potential weapon, a potential revolt, in the event Doom's reign became too tyrannical or too reckless. The very existence of the Thor core serves as a reminder that even in his godhood, Doom cannot be trusted to remain benevolent forever. The core would be his last line of defense against those who might rise up, or perhaps even a covert contingency plan to prevent his own descent into madness and absolute power. Throughout Battleworld, we see instances where the Thor core seems to act on its own initiative, showing subtle signs of dissent or hesitation toward Doom's rule. While these actions are often overshadowed by their need to carry out Doom's orders, there are key moments where the Thors question their place and even show signs of resistance. In particular, a Thor known as Jane Foster, who serves as one of the more prominent members of the core, begins to struggle with the concept of duty versus morality. She starts to recognize that Doom's version of a perfect world may not be the utopia it appears to be. These small sparks of rebellion within the core are the cracks in Doom's seemingly flawless armor, indicating that the Thor core, despite appearing to be his enforcers, might very well have been created to be his ultimate opposition in the event of his downfall. What if the reason Doom is so powerful and seemingly unstoppable is because he knew that his control could never be absolute? What if the Thor core was, in fact, his greatest creation, designed to be both his shield and his sword, a tool for the future that would ensure he would never lose his grip on the multiverse, unless the time came when it was necessary for him to fall? The Thor core, in essence, is the only force capable of challenging the very foundation of Battleworld, capable of dismantling the godlike power that Doom wields. They are his creations, but they are also the very force that could one day unmake him, if the multiverse calls for it. The Thor core wasn't simply a tool of Doom's might. It was his way of ensuring that, if the day came when his power became too dangerous, too absolute, there would be a force in place to oppose him. The Thors were created not to serve Doom, but to protect the multiverse from the unchecked consequences of a god who could not be reasoned with. Galactus was never a pawn. He was a sleeping god waiting for Doom's fall. For centuries, Galactus has been known as the Devourer of Worlds, an entity of unimaginable power that consumes entire planets to sustain himself. He is an ancient cosmic being, far beyond mortal comprehension, and his hunger is a constant, unyielding force that has shaped the universe in ways many cannot fathom. In the context of Secret Wars, Galactus's role might seem passive, almost like a puppet to be used by Doom as a pawn in his cosmic game. However, the true nature of Galactus's existence in this new reality is far more complex than mere servitude. He was never a tool to be used by Doom. He was a slumbering god, waiting for the day Doom's power would crumble, and for the moment when he would finally rise to restore balance to the multiverse. Galactus, in the vast scope of the Marvel Universe, is an entity of cosmic significance. While his existence is based on a hunger for energy, particularly the life force of planets, his true origins go much deeper. Galactus is a remnant of a previous universe, one that predated the current one. He was born when the previous universe collapsed, and in its dying moments, he emerged as the last of his kind, an immortal being forged from the primordial energy of creation. Over time, Galactus became a force of nature, necessary for the balance of the cosmos, consuming worlds not out of malice, but to sustain himself and the universe around him. His role in the grand scheme of things is that of a necessary destroyer, maintaining the cosmic order by preventing overpopulation and the imbalance of energy in the universe. When Doom, armed with the near-omnipotent power of the Beyonders, reshaped the multiverse and created Battleworld, he brought together fragments of countless realities into a single patchwork world. Battleworld, a chaotic amalgamation of different domains, was ruled by Doom with an iron fist, but there were those who were displaced, those whose existence was rendered obsolete by his godlike reign. Galactus, being one of the most powerful beings in the cosmos, would not simply bow to Doom's will. However, as the battle for the fate of the multiverse began to unfold, Galactus's role was far from passive. His presence in Battleworld was not one of subjugation but of waiting. His slumber not a sign of weakness but a sign of his ultimate plan. Galactus had long since grown weary of his own existence, knowing that the universe he inhabited was a reflection of the actions of the beings that governed it, including Doom. In his vast, eternal consciousness, Galactus saw Doom's rise as a threat to the very fabric of the multiverse. He knew that Doom's reign, despite being one of unimaginable power, was ultimately flawed. Doom, in his arrogance, believed himself to be the supreme ruler of all things, but Galactus saw through this illusion. He understood that the nature of power is cyclical, that even the most powerful beings, like Doom, cannot maintain their grip forever. Galactus's role in Secret Wars was never to serve Doom but to bide his time, to wait for the moment when Doom's power would weaken, when the threads of reality would begin to unravel. Galactus was always an agent of cosmic balance, and his true purpose was to step in when Doom's reign faltered, to restore the natural order that had been disrupted by Doom's unchecked control over the multiverse. Galactus's sleep was not a passive surrender. It was a calculated act. In his slumber, he was not weak, he was waiting. He was biding his time for the precise moment when Doom's power would collapse under its own weight. And when that moment arrived, Galactus would rise from his slumber, not as a servant of Doom, but as a force of nature that could tip the balance and end Doom's reign. The key to understanding Galactus's true role in Secret Wars lies in his nature as a cosmic entity. Unlike other beings, Galactus is not driven by petty desires or emotions. He operates on a level beyond mere mortality, and his actions are guided by a fundamental understanding of the universe's need for balance. Doom, in his arrogance, may have believed that he had gained control of the multiverse, but Galactus knew that such control was an illusion. The multiverse, by its very nature, cannot be contained or controlled indefinitely. There are forces far beyond Doom's comprehension that govern its existence, forces like Galactus, who represents the natural destruction necessary for creation. When Doom's power eventually begins to falter, when his reign over Battleworld proves unsustainable, Galactus's moment of awakening will come. He will rise not as a conqueror, but as a necessary force of destruction that will restore balance to the multiverse. His hunger will not be for the power of Battleworld, nor will he seek to devour Doom's realm for personal gain. Galactus's hunger is far more profound. It is a hunger for the cosmic balance that Doom has disturbed. Galactus will rise to consume not just the remnants of Battleworld, but the very remnants of Doom's reign, erasing the remnants of the godlike being who believed himself to be above all. This theory suggests that Galactus was never a pawn in Doom's game. He was simply waiting for the fall of Doom, biding his time in a cosmic slumber that would allow him to rise when the multiverse was on the verge of collapse. Galactus, in his infinite wisdom, understood the inevitable truth. Doom's reign could not last. When it finally crumbled, Galactus would be the one to restore balance, not as a servant to Doom, but as the ultimate force of cosmic order. His awakening would not be a result of Doom's power or plans, but would be the natural outcome of the forces at play in the multiverse, forces that even Doom could not control. Franklin Richards' powers are a result of Doom's godhood in Secret Wars ***. Franklin Richards, the son of Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, and Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, is one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel Universe. He possesses reality-warping abilities so vast that he can create universes with a mere thought, alter the fabric of existence, and manipulate time and space. These abilities have made Franklin a central figure in numerous Marvel storylines, particularly in his role as an Omega-level mutant. However, what is not often explored in depth is the source of Franklin's powers, especially in relation to Secret Wars. In a stunning twist, Franklin's powers, his ability to reshape reality itself, are not merely a product of his inherent mutant abilities. Instead, they are intimately connected to the godlike power of Dr. Doom, whose ascension to godhood during Secret Wars inadvertently caused Franklin to gain a new level of control over the universe. To understand the connection between Franklin's powers and Doom's godhood, it's important to first grasp the events that transpired during Secret Wars. When Dr. Doom usurps the power of the Beyonders, he becomes one of the most powerful beings in existence, effectively taking control over the multiverse itself. Doom reshapes reality, creating Battleworld, a patchwork planet made up of fragments of other realities, each governed by different rules and dominions. Under his rule, Doom becomes an all-powerful god, with the ability to mold existence as he sees fit. However, in his pursuit of omnipotence, Doom's actions cause significant disturbances in the cosmic balance, and the very forces that gave him power ripple throughout the multiverse. Franklin Richards, though still a young boy at the time, is profoundly affected by the changes Doom enacts on the multiverse. The reality-warping abilities Franklin possesses are not just a product of his mutant gene, but also a result of the cosmic forces unleashed when Doom seized control. As Doom reshapes reality, he inadvertently manipulates the building blocks of the universe in such a way that Franklin's powers are enhanced, reaching a level that mirrors, and in some cases rivals, that of Doom himself. This connection is subtle yet profound. Franklin's reality-warping powers are now not only tied to his genetic potential, but are also intricately linked to the divine energy that Doom controls. As Doom exerts his will over Battleworld, Franklin's abilities evolve, reaching new heights. It becomes clear that Franklin is not just a passive observer in this new reality, but is, in fact, deeply affected by Doom's godlike presence. His powers are a direct consequence of Doom's manipulation of the very fabric of existence. As Doom reshapes worlds and alters the laws of physics, Franklin's mind and abilities are stretched to their limits. It is as though the two forces, the power of Franklin and the power of Doom, are entwined, and Franklin's inherent potential as a reality-warping being becomes amplified by Doom's godhood. This theory suggests that Franklin's ability to create and alter universes is not entirely innate to him. Rather, it is a result of the cosmic shift caused by Doom's ascension to godhood. In a way, Doom's power flows through Franklin, imbuing him with a level of cosmic control that he would not have otherwise achieved. While Franklin's powers were already vast, they were constrained by his age and understanding. However, in the new reality shaped by Doom, Franklin's powers grow unchecked, reflecting the scale of the godlike energy Doom commands. The key to this theory lies in understanding the nature of godhood and power within the Secret Wars storyline. Dr. Doom, in his pursuit of ultimate power, alters the very structure of the multiverse, and in doing so, he creates ripples that affect everyone and everything within it. Franklin, as a unique being with the potential to reshape reality, becomes a nexus of this power. His connection to Doom is not one of direct influence, but rather one of consequence. Doom's godhood and his manipulation of the multiverse are the catalysts that unlock Franklin's full potential. The result is a young boy who possesses the power to change reality at will, not just because of his genetic makeup, but because the universe around him has been remade by a god's hand. Franklin's powers become a reflection of Doom's actions. As Doom's control over the multiverse strengthens, Franklin's abilities grow more potent, reaching a level where he can easily bend the laws of reality to his will. The relationship between the two becomes symbiotic, with Franklin embodying the very forces Doom has set into motion. Franklin's power, in essence, is a byproduct of Doom's godhood, a cosmic echo of the changes Doom has wrought in his quest for ultimate control. It is a delicate balance of power, one in which Franklin, though seemingly independent, is deeply influenced by the godlike forces that surround him. In the larger context of Secret Wars, this theory reframes Franklin Richards' powers as not just a result of his inherent abilities, but as a consequence of the cosmic upheaval caused by Doom's rise to godhood. Franklin becomes a living manifestation of the changes Doom has made to the fabric of the multiverse, and his abilities are an extension of Doom's divine manipulation. While Franklin remains a central figure in the Marvel Universe, his true potential is fully realized only because of Doom's actions. Without Doom's godlike power, Franklin would have never attained the cosmic scope of his abilities, and the universe itself would have remained unchanged. Thus, the theory suggests that Franklin Richards' powers are not merely the product of his mutant genes, but the result of a far greater cosmic event, a chain reaction set into motion by Doom's godhood. His reality-warping abilities, vast as they are intricately tied to the changes Doom has made to the universe. Franklin, in a sense, is not just a boy with extraordinary powers. He is a living testament to the cosmic forces unleashed by Doom, a being whose potential is as limitless as the multiverse itself. Doom didn't just recreate the multiverse, he gave the X-Men their resurrection powers. When Dr. Doom ascended to godhood during Secret Wars, he didn't just alter the multiverse, he remade it. Battleworld, a patchwork planet stitched together from fragments of different realities, was a direct result of his manipulation of existence itself. However, this drastic reshaping of reality had unforeseen consequences. some of which were far more profound than even Doom could have anticipated. One of the most intriguing outcomes of Doom's actions was the birth of a new reality where the X-Men, and mutants in general, would gain a power they had never had before: resurrection. The power of resurrection among mutants is something that would become deeply entwined with the fate of the X-Men after Doom's alterations to reality. Prior to Secret Wars, the X-Men had always been a group defined by their resilience, their ability to fight back against the oppressive forces of both society and otherworldly threats. But what they had never been able to overcome was the finality of death. While individual mutants had died and been resurrected over the years, through different means such as healing factors, mystical elements, or even the powers of characters like Jean Grey, the idea of a systematic, consistent resurrection was unheard of. That was, until Doom's godhood unlocked something far more significant. As Doom took control of the multiverse and shaped Battleworld, something began to change in the very fabric of reality. His powers didn't just shape the universe in ways that were visible to the eye, they fundamentally altered the rules of life and death itself. Doom, in his quest to remake the world, had a vision. But in this vision, he didn't just want to preserve the status quo. He wanted to create a new kind of reality where death wasn't permanent, where individuals, especially those with the potential for greatness, could be given a second chance at life. This desire to reshape reality manifested in the X-Men's ability to come back from the dead. The catalyst for this power came with the arrival of the Five, a group of mutants led by the telepathic and immensely powerful mutant, Jean Grey. This group, in essence, became the foundation of the X-Men's resurrection protocol. Jean, with the help of other mutants like Proteus, Elixir, Tempest, and Goldballs, formed a system that could bring back any mutant who died. But this wasn't just a random occurrence or a mere fluke. This resurrection power was directly tied to the godlike manipulation of existence that Doom had initiated. Doom's influence on reality had unlocked the potential for this power, and it was through his reshaping of life and death itself that this resurrection power was born. The X-Men's resurrection ability was not just a byproduct of their own mutant gifts, but a direct consequence of Doom's manipulation of the multiverse. As Doom remade the universe, he didn't just reshape the planet's geography or the rules of time and space. He also altered the deeper forces that govern life, death, and identity. By doing so, he effectively gave the X-Men a gift, one that would drastically change the course of their lives and the larger narrative of mutant kind. Doom's alteration to the multiverse didn't just allow for the X-Men's resurrection. It actively ensured that they would be reborn whenever they fell. His power as God had become so absolute that he bent the very concept of mortality. Every time a mutant of the X-Men died, the Five were able to bring them back using the advanced technology of Cerebro and the combined powers of their abilities. But what was truly extraordinary was that this wasn't just healing or revival, it was a metaphysical change. Mutants could die, and not only would their bodies be restored, but their very souls would return to their forms, completely healed and resurrected with their memories intact. It was as if Doom, in his godhood, had created a new reality where the cycle of life and death could be controlled, not by gods or fate, but by the will of those who had the power to resurrect. This power was not just limited to the X-Men themselves, but had a profound impact on the entire mutant race. Mutants who had long since been lost, heroes and villains alike, could be brought back. The gates of resurrection swung wide open, offering new possibilities for those who had once been defeated by death. In essence, Doom had given the mutants a second chance, and in doing so, he had created an environment where they were no longer bound by the natural laws of the universe. This act, perhaps unintentionally, would forever alter the status quo of mutant kind. No longer would the X-Men be forced to live with the pain of permanent loss. No longer would they have to watch their loved ones die without hope of return. Doom's influence over the multiverse had granted them a form of immortality, though this wasn't without its complexities and consequences. But this gift wasn't without its price. The resurrection protocols created by the Five required immense amounts of energy and time to execute, and it wasn't always clear whether every mutant who was brought back was truly the same person. The resurrection process was a careful and controlled procedure, one that required the combined efforts of several powerful mutants to work in concert. Despite its reliability, it was never a flawless system, and it raised questions about the nature of life, death, and identity. Was a resurrected mutant truly the same as they had been before? Or were they, in some way, altered by the process? Yet, what remains clear is that this resurrection power, granted to the X-Men by Doom's manipulation of reality, has become one of the most significant changes in the history of mutant kind. Doom, in his quest to reshape the multiverse, did not just give the X-Men the power to come back from the dead. He gave them a chance to reimagine their futures, to live without fear of permanent death. And in doing so, he forever altered the course of their story, intertwining their fates with his own godlike influence over the universe. Battleworld's anomalies were caused by a hidden survivor, Kang the Conqueror. When Dr. Doom reshaped the multiverse and created Battleworld during Secret Wars, the planet was a strange amalgamation of countless alternate realities, each fragment pieced together from the wreckage of realities that once existed. The result was a world of chaotic landscapes, shifting laws of reality, and bizarre, often contradictory geography. However, the oddities and anomalies that plagued Battleworld weren't merely a byproduct of Doom's godlike manipulation. They were the consequence of something far deeper, something that Doom himself might not have fully understood. Hidden within the layers of this new reality, a survivor lurked, none other than Kang the Conqueror. Kang, the time-traveling warlord from the 31st century, had long been a threat to the Avengers and others in the Marvel Universe, manipulating time itself to further his goals. Throughout his various incarnations, from Ramatut to the Scarlet Centurion, Kang had always sought to control time, rewriting it for his benefit. His obsession with time manipulation was not just about power, it was about understanding the nature of existence and bending it to his will. But while Kang had experienced countless timelines and realities, he had never fully conquered the most important one, his own. When Doom used his godlike powers to create Battleworld, it wasn't merely a patchwork of realities. It was an unstable world built on the ruins of multiversal war, one where the threads of time were stretched and fractured. Each piece of Battleworld, each domain that Doom forged, was filled with echoes of alternate histories and possibilities. This chaos, this warping of reality, created the perfect hiding place for a being like Kang. For Kang, who was no stranger to time travel and dimensional manipulation, the construction of Battleworld represented an opportunity, an unstable moment in the timeline where he could not only survive but thrive. Kang's presence on Battleworld was subtle at first. He didn't announce himself or reveal his true identity. Instead, he observed the newly formed world from the shadows, watching as Doom struggled to maintain control over the multiverse he had reshaped. Doom, in his arrogance, might have believed that he was the sole ruler of this new universe, but what he failed to account for was the presence of a being like Kang, someone who had the ability to manipulate time itself. Kang saw Battleworld as both an opportunity and a tool. While Doom was caught up in his godlike ambitions, Kang had already begun to manipulate the delicate fabric of time that held Battleworld together. The anomalies that plagued Battleworld, strange temporal rifts, warped landscapes, and fractured histories, were not random. They were the fingerprints of Kang's interference. By manipulating time, Kang was able to subtly alter the very structure of Battleworld, creating fissures in reality that could not easily be explained. Some of these anomalies seemed like isolated incidents, domains that didn't quite make sense or areas that should have been empty but were instead filled with remnants of other realities. But they all pointed to one thing: the unseen influence of a time traveler who had survived the collapse of the multiverse. Kong had learned how to survive the destruction of his own timeline by hiding in the crumbling remnants of the multiverse itself, and Battleworld was the perfect place for him to remain hidden. As Doom's reign over Battleworld continued, Kong began to manipulate events from behind the scenes, using the fractured nature of reality to his advantage. He didn't want to simply survive. He wanted to control the future, and he saw Doom's reign as a way to create a new timeline where he could rule over all of time. By subtly controlling the timeline of Battleworld, Kong could slowly create a new path for himself, one where he could become the ultimate conqueror, not just of the present but of all realities. His actions in the shadows would shape the fates of countless characters, pushing them toward certain actions and outcomes that would ultimately benefit him in the long run. In the end, Kang's manipulations on Battleworld were not a simple matter of time travel. They were part of a larger plan to restore his dominion over the multiverse. His presence on Battleworld was not a coincidence. It was a carefully orchestrated maneuver, a way for him to survive the collapse of the multiverse and bide his time until he could strike. While Doom believed that he was the one controlling the fate of the new world, Kong knew that the true power lay in understanding the deeper currents of time. The anomalies that seemed to plague Battleworld were Kang's subtle way of destabilizing Doom's rule, preparing for the day when the time would come for him to take control. Battleworld itself, as a creation of Doom, was a fragile construct, a world built on the brink of collapse, with the laws of time and reality constantly shifting. Kong, a being who had mastered the manipulation of time, saw this instability as both a challenge and an opportunity. His interference in the timeline of Battleworld was a calculated risk, one that allowed him to remain hidden while subtly reshaping the events of the world to serve his own ends. Doom's godhood may have given him the power to reshape the multiverse, but it was Kang's understanding of time that allowed him to thrive in the chaos Doom created. The anomalies that seemed so random were, in fact, the result of Kang's careful manipulation, a way for him to manipulate time and reality to his own advantage. Kang's true role in the events of Secret Wars was far more significant than anyone could have imagined. While Doom's actions reshaped the multiverse, Kang's manipulations quietly ensured that the multiverse's future was in his hands. Battleworld was not just a playground for Doom's godhood. It was a battleground for Kang's ultimate conquest, one that was hidden in plain sight, woven into the very fabric of reality itself.